Okay, so today we're going to be interviewing Julie, asking her some questions related to motivation, critical thinking, reading techniques, and learning styles. So we're going to start the interview now. So the first question we're asking you is about motivation. Are you self-motivated?
I believe I am, yes. I believe I'm self-motivated. Otherwise I wouldn't be doing this job.
Okay. So do you encourage students to be self-motivated?
Yes, I try to, because I think when students are at school, or maybe college, before they come to university, they're not really familiar with being self-motivated. Maybe they are expecting teachers to tell them what to do and to tell them why and so on. But they need to become more self-motivated as they start their university career, so that they do more for themselves and don't rely on being kind of spoon-fed information or, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, so what motivates you to teach the course you teach?
I think I'm genuinely interested in helping international students to become familiar and to familiarise themselves with university life in the UK.
Okay.
But I come from a languages background, so my main interest is in language and in communication. So helping students, or foreign students, to be more confident in their communication in English, and just to be able to function effectively, I think, in their university life in the UK.
Thank you. That's all questions for motivation. So we're going to learning styles. Which of the 3 learning styles do you mostly use in your lesson?
I think it depends to a certain extent what I'm teaching or what the subject is. And also, I try to be aware of the learning styles of the students that I'm working with. But obviously there's some limitations as to if we can cover everything. And it depends, say, on the students that we have. I try to kind of maybe combine the learning styles a little bit. So obviously the visual and the kinesthetic, I think, help a lot of people, and a lot of students feel that those are their main, their strongest learning styles, or learning preferences. But it depends on the background of the student, because some students come from cultures where the listening is very important, and they've maybe learnt by listening in the past. So I try to be aware of students whose cultures are more listening based. I think these days a lot of students are so connected with the screen and with visual media that a lot of them take in things much more through their eyes than their ears. So there's an argument for trying to encourage them to listen more, because they're relying too much maybe on the visual. But it depends a little bit on what you're teaching, I think, and the students. But probably the visual and the kinesthetic, I try to use those in combination.
The next question is, as a lecturer, which learning styles do you think is most appropriate for undergraduate studies? Please clarify more.
So for this, do you mean for the students to use, or for the students to use? Okay. It depends on the student again, because students will be most effective if they are using their preferred language learning style. Okay. So if a student feels comfortable writing everything down, for example, then I think that's fine for them. If other students feel that they need to hear and they need to listen to things more, then they should focus on that. So, but I think it's important that students are aware of their preferred learning style, and therefore they know how to study most effectively for them.
Thank you. going to move to the reading and research technique. So, what reading and research technique is common among students?
I think when students first come on the International Foundation year, depending on their background and their experience, they don't necessarily have very good reading and research techniques at all. So I think that's one of the things that the International Foundation year helps students to do, is to develop some strategies. I think, again, I don't know what your experience is of that, and if you feel that you had any reading or research techniques before, but I don't know, that obviously depends on how you studied in the past and what your school, the education system encouraged you to do. But I think most students have some idea of sort of skimming and scanning. They've heard of skimming and scanning, but I'm not convinced they always do that in the early maybe weeks of the International Foundation year. They know what they should do, but they don't always do it, or they're not always able to perhaps do it effectively. And I think there are other techniques, obviously, that you're going to mention.
So, okay, the next question: has the SQR reading helped students? If yes, please justify your answer.
I think this SQ3R is a good strategy, and I think it does help the students because they can actually kind of plan a little bit what they're going to do with their reading and how they're going to do it. And I think it also maybe makes it easier for them so they don't panic quite so much. Okay, if they're faced with a long text. If they've got some kind of step-by-step strategy like the SQ3R, I think that does help them to break the text down and to make sense of it without panicking too much.
Thank you. Okay, so that's all for the reading and research technique. Now we're going to critical thinking. So, do you encourage students to apply critical thinking in their studies? If you just by
Yes. I think, again, a lot of students who come at the beginning of their International Foundation year don't really know what critical thinking is. At school level, students are not necessarily required to do critical thinking. Okay, I don't know if I'm being if I'm overgeneralizing there, but my feeling is that at school level, it doesn't really come in that much, and it's only at university level that it starts to become a necessary requirement. So, yeah, I think critical thinking is one of the most important skills that university students need to develop. And I think it's not easy for international students to do that, because you've got the language is one thing that you're trying to develop and cope with, and then the next level is also critical thinking, and then expressing what you find from that critical thinking. So there's almost 3 steps. You've got the language itself, then you've got, okay, how to think critically, and then how to express that, or to show that you have done some critical thinking. You know, there's almost 3 steps. So I think it's very important for international students to do that. But I think it's maybe one of the most difficult things that they find as they go through. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you. The next question is: do you apply critical thinking, and why?
You mean myself,
Yeah.
or in the classes?
Yourself and your class.
So both. Okay. Yes, I try more and more to, when I read something, to think critically about it, to look at the evidence that's given, to look at references and so on, and obviously to check those out if I'm thinking about using the text in a class with students. And also, you know, if I'm looking at text outside the classroom, yes, I think I've become more critical as my career has continued, because with all the information.
So the topic for this interview is, what would you advise an international student who is just coming to the UK for the first time? What advice would you give this student?
Probably got maybe 3 pieces of advice to give to international students coming to the UK for the first time. Firstly, try to find out as much as possible about the university where you're going to study before you arrive. Okay, so maybe watch a